Hi everyone, Ben here at Pixel Portable, the home of portable gaming and travel gaming. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about that most pressing question that many of you have. What is the best handheld? Now, just for the sake of argument, I'm not going to be covering portable emulation devices. It's a whole different topic altogether. But from the official handhelds that were released from different main companies, going from Atari Lynx all the way up to Steam Deck, we're going to look at which is actually the best based on science, based on numbers, based on Excel sheets. Buckle up, because the answer actually really did surprise me. Now, of course, I've done videos similar to this before. I've talked about my personal opinion, but I figured in this one, we were going to tuck our glasses on and we were going to do some science. We're going to look at some numbers. So I got Literal Human Vulture, friend of this channel, to create me an Excel spreadsheet. And in this Excel spreadsheet, we have put in some factors in which we are going to judge different handhelds against. And we're going to see which of them actually is the best. I just couldn't guess what the winner actually would be. I had my own opinion. But if I give you my own opinion, you'll know it's not the winning answer, and therefore it will, potentially spoil what you think might be the winner. So you're going to be thinking to yourself, how are we applying a semi-scientific method to determining what's the best official handheld that's ever been released? Well, I'm going to take you through the criteria that I thought were personally the metrics that would determine how good a handheld console actually is. So I'm going to read them out now. We have the unit price as of today, not on launch. So something like an original Game Boy, we're not taking the cost when the Game Boy was originally launched. We're talking about if you were to buy it today, how much would that cost you? Next thing we have is the size, height, width, depth. Now, this is a difficult one because some people like really big handhelds and some people like really small handhelds. But I thought from the perspective of portable gaming, smaller the better. Weight, same thing, right? You want the lightest handheld possible, the smallest handheld possible, the cheapest handheld possible. Battery life was the metric after that. How long can you play it before you're disappointed and have to charge it? Or what are the charging methods? Does it take batteries, or is it got its own internal lithium ion? These things will matter, so we put them in the spreadsheet. Library, right? It's great having a small console that's cheap, that's light, that has a good battery life, but if it only has 3 games on it, and one of those games happens to be something like Harvest Fishing, then you're in for a bad time. So library, the size of available games on that piece of equipment also helps. Homebrew ability, the ability to homebrew that item to get more out of it than perhaps you could upon launch. I think that's important too. It's also a great way to play your legally owned ROMs if you have any. Does it have a lit screen? Now, obviously, you go past a certain age, they don't. You go past a certain age, they do. But it really matters. If you've ever played in the dark, and you've tried to use a worm light on a Game Boy Color or something, you'll know that it works, but it's not a great experience. Headphone port. For someone like me, I'm always using headphones, not these exact ones, but I'm always using headphones when I'm out and I want to listen to the banging music of the game I'm playing. So headphones, does it have a headphone port? That's another metric we're going to judge it on. Headphone port. Can you listen to the music privately, not sharing it obnoxiously to everyone else? Don't do that. Then there's a modability score, and that's just how moddable is that device. It's a very vague metric. It goes between 0 and 3. 0 meaning there's no moddability options. 1 being like, you could change the shell maybe, or maybe some buttons. 2 being like, you can put a new screen in, change the shell. 3 being like, you can change loads of stuff with it, and it's almost a completely different device. And they are all the metrics. So we have price, we have size, we have weight, we have battery life, we have library score, we have homebrew ability, we have a lit screen. I don't know why I'm counting those, because are we even at 7? No, we're at 6. Headphone port and modability score. There are 8 metrics. Now, the way this works is we feed in the data. I use the Atari Lynx 2 as a benchmark worst. That's what I thought in my head. When this goes through all the data, it will come out bottom of the chart. I wanted something that was going to be, a good way of benchmarking. So Atari Lynx, and we go all the way up to the Steam Deck. I've inputted all this data in. And I want you in the comments right now, before you even know the answer, comment in what you think it is. In the comments, chuck in your vote. What do you think is going to be the winner? Then carry on watching and see if you're right. You might be. You might be. I wasn't. I was definitely not right. I was very, very wrong. I was very wrong. Yeah. So we've inputted all our data, and from doing that, that's given us a winner based on all those metrics. And I'm going to reveal to you last place, and then I'm going to do the top 3, 3, 2, 1 in order so that you can see. In last place with how many points? With a total points of 17 was the Atari Lynx 2. Coming in at third, it's the Game Boy Advance. This doesn't even have a lit screen, and this came third. This came third. It doesn't have a lit screen. It doesn't even have like, you know, a rechargeable battery. You have to buy rechargeable batteries and charge them. How does a Game Boy Advance come third according to the science and the math and the numbers? I said I wasn't going to go through the details, but you can guess what it is. It's because it scored highly on everything. It's cheap, it's light, it's got a big library, headphone port, modability, all that stuff. You've likely seen my custom Game Boy Pixel Portable Game Boy Advance. Video is going to be here if you want to see me what I did to it and how I made the ultimate Game Boy Advance, complete with rechargeable USB-C battery. But yeah, the Game Boy Advance is really good when it's modded. What do you think number 2 is? This shouldn't surprise you really at this point. Number 2 is the Game Boy Advance SP. The Game Boy Advance SP. Mine's all scuffed. This one is actually going to get modded soon. This is my original. You can see it's been through the wars. I was currently playing Yu-Gi-Oh! The other day when I was traveling through central London. Clamshell design, it's timeless. It's very nice, got a backlight. Could be a lot better, could be a lot worse. So we've had Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Advance SP. What do you think is number 1? What do you think is the best official handheld released based on science, based on numbers, or based on a science? I wouldn't say the science. Based on Ben science, based on pixel science, which is almost pseudoscience. Take it with a grain of salt. The winner, the best handheld that you can get right now on the metrics that we've given you is the DS Lite, specifically the Lite. The DS Lite, this is the best thing you can spend your money on. So the DS Lite, on average, I was finding it for as low as £34, which is like probably $40, maybe less than that if you're, I don't know. And that's prices over here. I don't know what your prices are where you are in the world. Maybe it's slightly more, maybe it's slightly less. I can only talk about here in the UK. It's £34 on average to pick one of these up. And they're everywhere. They're really easy to pick up. I still have mine. I have 2, in fact. And that gave it 17 points. Made it the cheapest handheld on the list. Just beating the Game Boy Color and the Game Gear, which were both about £45. The next thing was size. So the size of the DS Lite is, well, the height, the width, and the depth totaled at 227, which gave it a score of 14. It was beaten by the Game Boy Advance SP and by the Game Boy Micro. I mean, the Micro doesn't surprise anyone. You know, a Game Boy Micro is this big. This is a DS Lite. You know, there's quite a big difference. But you'll notice that the Micro wasn't in second place where the Game Boy Advance was. And this is a Game Boy Advance on steroids, right? This is a Game Boy Advance that has a backlit screen. It still has the headphone port. It has a really good internal battery life, you know? And it's really light. But it didn't beat the Game Boy Advance because it's super expensive. And modding it isn't as easy. You know, there's lots of other metrics. The next thing on the DS Lite was weight. And the DS Lite came in at 218 grams, which makes it one of the lightest handhelds. Obviously, the winner was the Micro, which came in at 80 grams, which is significantly lower. The next metric is battery life. The battery life on the DS Lite, on average, with the screens off, is about 19 hours. That puts a battery score of 15. It is beaten by two things. The Game Boy, original Game Boy, which came first, with a 40-hour battery life, up to a 40-hour battery life on the original Game Boy. Yeah, and I remember in a previous video, I said that it had a terrible battery, and I was wrong. I was thinking about when the time I borrowed it off a friend, and the batteries didn't last long, but I think it's because those batteries could have been taken out of an old remote. So I have no idea. I didn't give that a fair shout, and I'm sorry for getting that wrong. The Game Boy, it has the best battery, not a bad battery. So I retract that. It's a pixel mistake. But now we're on library, and that's where things get insane. The library for the DS Lite is currently 5,006. Oh, but Ben from Pixel Portable, where did you get 5,006 from? That's not how many DS games there are. In fact, there are only 3,468 DS games. So where are the other ones coming from? Well, that's where the DS Lite comes in clutch, because the DS Lite has got its DS port, but the DS Lite also has a slot for Game Boy Advance games, thus giving it access to the Game Boy Advance library, as well as the DS library natively. You know, not using a homebrew or anything like that. You have access to 2 systems worth of games and libraries, and that makes this insane. It's not the highest. You know, you've got the Steam Deck on this list, and that's 60,000 plus games that you have access to. So the Steam Deck definitely wins there. But 5,000 games, native games on the DS Lite is incredible. Remember who came in last? The Atari Lynx 2 with 71 games. Remember that? 71 games? 5,006. That's a lot more dice rolls to find a game that you might like. Is the DS Lite homebrewable? Yes, it is. It is homebrewable. Does it have a lit screen? It has a lit screen, and it has 2 of them. So it's got double lit screens. Don't worry, it didn't get double the points. It just gets 1 point for having lit screens. Does it have a headphone port? You better believe that it does. I don't know if you can see it here, but it does have a headphone port. Much unlike the Game Boy Advance SP, which does not come with a native headphone port. You have to get an adapter that fits on one of these little proprietary Nintendo N things to give you a headphone port. And that is one of the big downsides to the original SP. And when I mod my SP, I'm going to give it a headphone port because I'm sick of that. I'm sick of it not having a headphone port. I gave a moddability score of 1. I've seen shells. I've seen little replacement screens. It's not crazy. It's not got a huge depth of mods, but it's moddable. You can customize it. You can change the shell. You can make it look nice. You can make it look pretty. So it gets a moddable score of 1. And in total, all of its points put together gave it 75 points, putting it in position number 1. So as you see, I was not expecting the DS Lite to be number 1. I thought the DSi, because I'm stupid, right? I thought the DSi was really cool, but it doesn't work on the metrics that I've been measuring this on. You know, the DSi is bigger than this. Big as bad in this graph. In this graph? In these science things. But yeah, so the DS Lite is the master race of handhelds, official handhelds that was released. So you might be thinking, wow, Steam Deck wasn't even in the top 3. Where was it? The Steam Deck came in at number 15. It came in, yes, it came in from the 3rd last. And even though it has a huge library, you know, you think about the first few metrics. Price, well, the Steam Deck's really expensive. You think of weight, Steam Deck's really heavy. Size, it's really, really big. You know, those 3 things alone knocked off tons of points off it. Same with the Vita. I love the Vita. I think the Vita's fantastic, but one of my favorite handhelds of all time. And that didn't score very well on this metric. The thing that I thought was going to win was certain that, well, not Yokai watched the game, but I thought that the 2DS, I thought this was going to be the winner. And here was my logic. I didn't put enough emphasis on size and stuff and forgot about how big this is compared to some other things. I mean, look at the dimensions difference, right, between the two. But here is the thing. If we were to take in modded library, then this gets the library of a lot of stuff. So does the 2DS XL. I didn't have that as a factor. Modability was just a factor. Whether or not you owned the legal ROMs of those games was a different thing. So we have a form factor that is quite pleasant, but these are so cheap. So if I go to the 2DS, by the way, the 2DS came in at number 5. It's 5th on the list. Just still really good, but not where I thought it was going to be. You can pick up a 2DS on average in the UK for £45. So I'm just going to hard sell you a 2DS right now, because even though the DS Lite won, it's also the same cost as a 2DS. 2DS. It's the wedge-shaped one. It's the one that everyone thought looked dumb. It's the one that everyone thought was bad. And in some ways, it is worse than a 2DS XL. But it's £45. A 2DS right now, a 2DS XL in the UK is on an average of £160. This is £45. You can get like 4 of these. 4 of these for the same price as a 2DS XL. 2DS XL just has the ability to clamshell and slightly bigger screens. But yeah, so for £45, you can get yourself a 2DS XL. Sorry, 2DS. One of these wedge ones, right? These are built like tanks. I have thrown this. I've dropped this. These are designed for children. These were the... If you don't know what the 2DS purpose was, it was a stripped down, cheaper, more affordable, more child-friendly version of the 3DS before the 2DS XL and before the 2DS XL came out, which is a streamlined version of the 3DS XL. So the 2DS, as you guessed by the name, doesn't have a 3D screen. It's a 2D screen. But not many people use the 3D screen, so that wasn't a big deal. This has the same Wi-Fi capabilities. This has a really accessible SD card slot, by the way, which is just in the side. Whereas the 3DS, you had to take the bottom part of the shell off to get to. 2DS XL made it easier because the 2DS XL is fantastic too. It's got a nice stick. It's got all the buttons that you would have, and it has slightly smaller screens, nice volume slider on the side. It's just a stripped down version of the 3DS made affordable. And that gives you access to all of the 3DS games. That gives you access to all of the online, well, before they shut it down, you could get the virtual console games. Anyway, the point I'm getting to is, for £45, you can either get yourself a 2DS or you can get yourself a DS Lite. The DS Lite is going to let you play all of the Game Boy Advance and DS titles. And if you're not interested in those, this will let you play all the 3DS games. And if you homebrew this, and you happen to have a lot of games that you own the ROMs for, you'll play a lot of games on that too. So, and they're both the same price, but one came in 5th. So I thought this was going to win. Basically, this is just a big copium announcement on how I thought this would win, and it didn't, and I think that it should. But it doesn't win because it doesn't beat the DS Lite on weight, doesn't beat it on library, and it matches it on price. So it really comes down to what games you like more. If you like 3DS games more than you like DS games, get yourself a 2DS. If you like DS games and Game Boy Advance games, get yourself a DS Lite specifically. Because if you get a DSi onwards, they do not have the Game Boy Advance slot that you need if you want to play Game Boy Advance games. The best handheld that you can buy, the official handhelds, is the DS Lite. Go get yourself one right now while they're still cheap. And enjoy yourself some DS games. Enjoy yourself some Game Boy Advance games. Let me know in the comments, what's your favorite DS game? What's your favorite Game Boy Advance game? I would love to know, because if there's some that I haven't heard of or haven't played, I might give them a try. Is there a metric that you think I missed? Something that is more important? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
When we go into the shops, spending money till you drop, and I'm having a great time. Convince me to spend some more.